without the rejection, that ghostly quality is more amplified with the core 9.
Well, rejection feels like a solid wall, right?
Yeah.
So that's that counters that ghostly, vapor 9 thing we're talking about.
With low rejection, particularly with high frustration, can be just entitlement to get everything you should want.
Yeah.
So, statement, right?
Correct.
The big hormone enneagram.
I'm John Lekovich, 415, sexual self-pres, 458 Trifix.
I'm David Gray, self-pres sexual, 9 with 1 wing, 974 Trifix.
What up, it's Emeka. I'm an 8-wing-7, sexual self-pres with 854 fixes.
Hi, I'm Nancy. I'm a 3-wing-4 self-pres social, a 369 Trifix.
Hi, I'm Alexandra. I'm a social self-preservation 9-wing-1, 963 Trifix.
If you like or hate us, make sure you go like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and make sure you leave us a review.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. Today, we're picking up right where we left off with the question that somebody sent in about what it's like to have frustration last, attachment last, or rejection last. And we also looked at what it's like to have each of the centers last. But before we get into it, let me hit you with the usual plugs. If you haven't already, go buy John's book. Update your understanding and knowledge of the instincts. You can buy it at Amazon. Leave a review. Do it today. If you're looking for more serious foundational teaching and inner work practice, Josh and John have the Enneagram School. They've got a course on object relations in the centers and more courses coming soon. If you want to get more information about what they've got going on, join their email list. They've also got a Discord going on. Get more information at theenneagramschool.com. DAA, Dark Arts Academy, because you want to become dangerously perceptive and skilled at seeing the types clearly. Because if you're not, what's the point of knowing the Enneagram if you don't know how to apply it correctly to yourself and the people in your life? We recently did a class on 469 Trifix, Whiny Tears. We also took a look recently at the sexual instinct and polarity and tension and how it shows up in real life examples. So that was a really fun class. And in the last month or so, we got a Discord going. So DAA members only. You can find that in the members area along with perks and discounts to our typing services. David's Trifix booklet. David's got, as you know, a groovy archetypal look at the trifixes. David also has been working on a project with Kristen. There's a GoFundMe link on a physical update to the Trifix booklet with original paintings by Kristen and descriptions by Kaisa. There was a GoFundMe to raise money for a first batch of prints for this thing. The GoFundMe ended, but they're going to relaunch the GoFundMe, so you can get more information if you want to get involved so that we can all get our hands on the physical prints of this new Trifix booklet. And last but not least, Alexandra is offering Enneagram astrology readings if you want to understand what your astrological chart has to say in tandem with your Enneagram typing. So I think that's it. Oh yeah, shout out to those who sent an email to emekatheGreat@gmail.com. Much appreciated. Thank you for affirming how amazing I am.
Hi guys, it's Tamara again. So when I was listening to Nancy, David, and Emeka explain what it means to be missing rejection, I feel like I got that very well. But would it be possible for you guys to explain what it's like to be missing attachment?
Oh, I guess it's the same question from somebody else.
Positive, confidency, assertive, compliant, withdrawn, frustration.
Wow.
Pretty much all of them. What is it like to not have any of these things be your Trifix or your Trifix flames? Thank you.
Okay.
That's an encyclopedia right there.
Yeah.
This is a consume dominant, being like, gimme, 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 gimme.
Yeah, that's a lot. Like, we did the episodes on the missing pieces. I guess that's what she's referring to. That feels like a course. Like, all right, what is like them be missing? She went all across the board, missing compliance, missing assertiveness, and it's like, well, what's it like to pay for a $5,000 course where we teach you step by step?
Yeah, what am I low in? I'm low in assertive.
There's going to be so many qualifiers too on anything you'd say, because then like positive. Your instinctual stacking is going to shape it some way, or just yeah.
Well, I think the most interesting thing to tackle would be like object relation. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
What we have less of. I think that's the most interesting. Well, I'll say noticing people who have very little to no frustration in them. The thing I've seen that's absent is that frustration gives you a little bit of like what I want.
Yeah.
You know, like, because there's a little bit of this friction going on of like, okay, it's not like a no, and it's not a yes. It's like, but this thing I could have better.
Yeah.
That's what I think it is. I think frustration is having a sense of how things can be improved.
Ideal.
And so sometimes people who are all rejection or all attachment can have a little bit of not preferencelessness is not quite the thing, but like somebody who's like triple rejection can have just like, this is what I offer, and then there's a wall. And then somebody who is triple attachment can kind of be like waiting too much to be filled in by the environmental demands. And so frustration gives a little bit of, but this is what I want. Even if I can't actually get it, it kind of puts someone in that direction. And then somebody who is, all right, so someone who is total absent of rejection, they can't let things go or cut things off or end things. And I've known triple frustration people who don't have a lot to offer.
Yeah.
They're kind of consumers and complainers, but they don't have a lot to provide.
Yeah, that there's a kind of utilitarian aspect of rejection where it's like, all right, stop bitching about this. What are we going to do about this?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, what I've noticed is people with low frustration, there is, I guess, more like rejection heavy with low frustration. I have seen as like they're almost too take it or leave it as far as like what they're presented with. That they think like nothing can be done to improve the situation at all. So I have to accept it entirely as it is with whatever like flaws are a part of, what's on the deal, or reject it entirely. Whereas sometimes there's more wiggle room. There is actually more that can be demanded, more that can be improved, more that can be, just stuff like that. So that's what I see that's what I see with low frustration. And then, with low rejection, particularly with high frustration, like I think the opposite pole of, John, what you were talking about with where frustration can give you like your ideals. It can show you what your ideals are. It can show you what you're wanting. The negative pole of that can be just entitlement to get everything you should want.
Yeah.
That's me.
So it's David, right?
Correct.
David, God. So people with low rejection,
everything should just come to me, and
so people with low rejection, it's too little it's not enough accepting of just like what the parameters and boundaries of a certain thing are. Like it's just, maybe it's not going to get better. This is just like what you see is what you get. Accept it or move on. You can't just like demand from it all the time. Without it, you're just going to deplete the source of what you liked to begin with.
Or think that it's going to eventually improve to be what you want it to be. Some things are, part of the rejection thing is just seeing that, all right, I see the boundaries of this thing and I don't want it. So I'm going to remove myself from it. Whereas it seems like frustration sees that the ideal is always in sight. And so I'm going to stay and work on it. Yeah, that's a good point. That the rejection sees the boundaries of a thing.
Yeah. One thing I would say about like one thing 4 does is like, no, come actually like meet me, right? Like get in that personal zone, right? Like my personal identity wants to meet you in this personal way. And so somebody that has a low frustration, it can be kind of like hard to either locate them in like a attachment swirl, or it can be hard to get past the like shell of rejection. You know what I'm saying? Because there's like, even if with frustration, you still can't like totally meet them there. There's a little bit more like guiding somebody to like, this is the avenue or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
We were just at a restaurant. We were walking home, and Alexandra and I were talking about like some parts of her attachment journey, and then my experience of not having attachment. There's stuff that I've been learning as Alexandra and I are unpacking stuff and examining stuff, and like my mom always said I was like a super easy kid because she just put me down and I just played with my toys by myself, and it just didn't fuss and whatever. But it was kind of like I wasn't really trying to get their attention. It was kind of like if there was some like miss, it was kind of like I just took the miss and I didn't try to reconnect. And I see in retrospect, and I'm seeing it more and more, how that failure like led to a lot of my neurotic stuff, I think. And then how just growing up, it was kind of like I just felt like I was always in the very much like completely the wrong reality, and I should just die or something like that, you know? Like it just was like there's no sense of like, oh, that's the current of what people are doing. Like I can see everybody kind of doing something, but I had no sense of the utility of it to kind of get in somebody's stream. You know what I'm saying? So it just kind of like felt very like I'm in a wrong dimension or something.
Yeah, there is a thing with we were thinking about John is a hexad, and he had hexad parents, 2 rejection parents, and a frustration kid. And how there was something about how like me being attachment, there was still I was still always going back to like the source, trying to get the thing from them, you know, like it's like I feel like where I was going back to the drawing board with my parents over and over and over again to try to see what was going to work, try to get me like the love, the guidance, the nurturance, whatever. The hexad just kind of immediately gives up on it and is immediately just like, I'm going to go my own direction. And it's either going to like frustrate in some direction or it's going to reject in some direction. But where attachment could have been useful is there being some kind of like returning source, there being some kind of like negotiating energy, which is a lot of what attachment energy is. Like I think frustration in a lot of ways is like a demanding better. Rejection is a like, okay, fine, that's off the table. We'll move on without it. And then attachment, if you're like in on the negotiation, is a like a renegotiation of the terms to meet both parties, but constantly.
Mm-hmm. Renegotiation is a really great term for what attachment is doing, because thinking of my own family with having 2 rejection parents and how much it's baked in that there's no back and forth on the table. And so the possibility of something being taken away is presented, I'm very comfortable with that. The reflex to just be like, oh yeah, that's just not available to me is so, that's the norm. That's what I expect. And so the idea that we're going to have a back and forth over time as we navigate each other and figure out like what's going to work for each other, and I'm going to adapt and you're going to adapt, is just not something I've ever seen, you know, at formative relationships. I've never seen that happen. It's more like, it's like I'm offering this, you're offering that. Like we're not really working with each other in that kind of way. So that sense of we're attached to each other and we're in it together, and which means we're going to work through these ebbs and flows and negotiate that together. Yeah, that's definitely not something I grew up with. It feels like we covered like a basic skeleton of what we were going for, and we could just like flesh them out more, and maybe so each of you could do that. Like, what's it like to be attachment with the frustration secondary? You know, examples, stories, and anecdotes. And
I feel like I've said all of my shit about having 7 and 4 with my attachment shit.
Attachment types just need you to say it the same
more.
thing in a different way.
Let's see, because it's 7 and 4, I always, self glamorize and think I'm
so
amazing.
true.
You're just like a special 9. Because of his 7 and 4 fixes, it's just such a weird,
special 9.
different 9.
Yeah.
And the 1 fix, he's our entitled 9.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say this, like my experience of rejection with secondary frustration feels like the 8 thing of the fantasy of building a holding environment that I am in control of what's in it. And the frustration part is that I'm trying to refine the borders always. And so
borders is good.
And so it feels like, whenever something happens that annoys me or an outcome that I don't like, the rejection, machine and rejection frustration apparatus is sort of like, I need to refine my borders so that can't happen again. And so there's always seems to be like a sense of always trying to refine, okay, I was in this situation, this thing happened. The next time I'm in this situation, I need to come in with a different perspective, different strategy to prevents the thing that just happened from happening again, which inevitably creates a different problem, and then we do it again. But I'm really hard on myself when I repeat mistakes. Repeating mistakes is really something that I cannot tolerate.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the relationship talk, I feel like is an example of that, where this time Brazilian Latina, get more specific with my preference to edit the boundary.
And the thing also is that I say this is a fantasy because it feels like if I get more specific, I'm going to finally find the thing that's going to be, like the perfect border of what I want, but it's never the case. So what ends up happening is that there are all these littered, refined objects that I think are going to be the thing that I move from. So like it's Latina, Brazilians or whatever. A couple months later, I've already moved on. Like, and the boys will attest, like before, a couple months before, it was some other genre of woman.
Genre of woman.
Remember, I was doing the bimbos like a year ago.
Yeah.
So don't listen to anything I'm saying.
Oh, I know.
And these are all shallow categories.
There's no depth.
I will say though, along the rejection, I'm getting that right? Yeah, rejection with secondary frustration. Something I observe with you is that you do kind of freak out. You kind of lose your temper when the borders have not been, when something breaches the borders in a way that I wonder if that's a secondary frustration aspect. I wonder if it was secondary attachment. They'd be like, okay, well now we got to work within this. But you do have a frustration that the borders are not perfect.
Absolutely. I would say
when something gets in, you just hulk around for a little bit.
Yeah, it seems like I put a lot of effort into refining the borders. So when something comes through that should have been filtered, or I've already, what it is? I've already done the work to filter this. This is not supposed to be here. It's one thing if I'm caught off guard by something that I've never encountered before. But if it's I've already put up a filter that's supposed to keep this element out, but somehow it made it through. Whereas my sister, I feel like with rejection attachment, it feels like it feels like I get caught off guard a lot more. I spend more time refining what I want. And so there's this sense of, if I get more specific, the fantasies that this is, no random thing's going to happen. I feel like I'm in more control, whereas her level of control seems more effective.
Well, I mean, in a way, to me, that's she's got social interstacking, and if she's got, what does she have, 6 and 3 or 6 and 2?
Yeah, she's got a lot. It's really rejection attachment,
Yeah, so, right. So, I mean, attachment is, quasi-social, I guess you could say, in the sense of tracking what's going on. And whereas, it's almost like having 7 and 5 and 4. That's almost in a weird way like fantasy in a certain way. Yeah.
It's kind of like I'm putting myself in a corner, and she's at the center of the room.
Right.
And because I'm at the corner, I have the sense of a false sense of security that I won't be touched. Whereas she's at the center, she knows she's going to be touched, but that also means that she is more vigilant about the boundaries because she's got more back and forth about what's coming in and coming out. So that's what I see.
There's also a kind of withdrawn quality to the way you revise the borders, right? Like I would imagine with a 3 or a 2 fix, there's kind of like making the borders as I go along.
Yes.
Where you will withdraw and then kind of pause it and imagine kind of like the way 4 will like fantasize in a sense about how it should be.
Right.
Kind of thing. And then you'll go out, but it's this withdrawn component of you where, like the thing about Brazilian Latinas, right? It's like you kind of like you're like going back into your room and going like, yeah, this makes a lot of sense.
Right.
And then you're like, all right, yeah, and then I'm gonna go out and find it, maybe, but then reality is a little bit different than fantasy.
Absolutely.
And so maybe you won't find a Brazilian Latino, or maybe you won't find one you like, or maybe whatever, or maybe you find another girl or something like this.
This is a recurring theme too, like that sense of like I imagine the boundary. I've spent all these hours in my room, like refining the borders of this thing, and then the reality doesn't match up, and I'm disappointed, and restart the whole thing again. It's never what I think it's going to be. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Totally. Yeah, as Alexandra said, there's not like let's just like kind of roll with it and improvise and kind of it's always when a new reality shows up, there's a shock.
Yes, 100%.
It could be a positive shock or a negative shock. It could be like, wow, this is going to be really great. I didn't even think about this. Or it's like,
true.
What Alexandra said about you freaking out.
Yeah, nothing gets Emeka more pissed than something having gotten through the borders.
I've definitely learned in the last few years to really, especially with attraction, because I was so obsessed with trying to understand the facets of attraction, and I got to the point where I recognized that this is such a mysterious, unpredictable thing that you just can't see it coming. If I could envision what would be so great, then how great could it be, really? Like, there has to be an element of something unexpected and mysterious, and for me to be really effective. So it's, in a way, it's trying to control what can touch me by trying to envision how what would be the ideal. But you're just sort of like trying to like steer reality and steer like possibilities that you can't see coming. So
I'm thinking about borders and boundaries and so forth, and my self-pres dominance and how it's maybe getting slightly off topic to go there, but with my 9/7, as far as having an instinctual concern around being self-contained and self-sufficient with self-pres, and also an autonomy thing with 9. There's a way that the 9/7, like, I'm imagining if someone does breach my border, I'm magically assuming that, like, I'm a vapor or a ghost, and their hand is just going to pass through me. So there's nobody can solidly impact me anyway. Yep. So who cares? Go ahead and try. That kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alexandra, you've sort of talked about that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like how you can remain ungraspable.
Right.
Uncaught. You can always just stay free. It's just this like, okay, I'll just dematerialize, do whatever you want. You're never gonna like actually grab me.
Yeah.
If I don't want to be grabbed.
With 9 with the 1 wing especially, there's this reflex to abstract away from your own human condition in a certain way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like especially being triple attachment also, because like David, you and I we're both attachment heavy and we're both frustration heavy, but your frustration has higher weight because they're fixes, where mine are all in the wings.
Right.
So I feel like especially being triple attachment, like I'm just a ghost, you know? That's kind of how I feel a lot of the time. I feel like it's very easy for people to feel like they have a relationship with me and that not be a reciprocal feeling.
I guess without the rejection, that ghostly quality is more amplified with the core 9.
Yeah, it could be.
Well, rejection feels like a solid wall, right?
Yeah.
So that's that counters that ghostly, vapor 9 thing we're talking about.
And then what does frustration feel like? There's a wall and a vapor.
Oh, yeah. Right. What is it? I don't know. Frustration feels jagged.
Like an action?
Yeah. It's
It feels like a scold sometimes.
Yeah.
An expectation.
Yeah.
I see like jagged edges because it's sort of saying yes or knowing what you want, but no, it's not right yet. And then
yeah,
no,
it's like a yes, but, or yes,
but.
if.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of frustration with rejection. I mean, Alexandra's had a lot of good just observations and feedback about me. Like I'll do something and she'll just like relay what she's seeing in terms of all the rejection stuff behind the 4 stuff. And so maybe you could jump in if you remember stuff. But one thing I think that a way that I situate my sense of like identity and uniqueness is through the things I offer. So in kind of like a rejection way. And so like offering, information and things like this, but also a way of being like particularly penetrating and sort of like making things happen in a particular, especially interior sense. Like I think it shows up in coaching where I think I am pretty good. I get feedback a lot that relative to a lot of like therapists and coaches and stuff like this, I kind of do what is that thing when your heart's failing, like you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, like the defibrillator, something,
whatever. Yeah, something like that. I can like imbue people's like inner world or subjectivity with that kind of thing, and so a lot of the ways I experience and express what I think is unique in myself and try to like uphold that is through the things that I offer. But being, no attachment types, one of the things I experience is attachment types can be very sensitive and very like take things on from the outside, but they also have a very flexible experience of themselves. And I can be very like unaffected and forceful in a certain way, and things not bother me, things not touch me, whatever. But then when something gets in, kind of like with Emeka, I flip the fuck out, and it feels like something in me is getting contaminated. It's getting like, it feels like something from the outside touching me has, I don't know the term, but it feels
violating.
It feels like, I mean, it's very exaggerating, but there's like a rape quality. There's a feeling of being used by the outer world in some way, and I feel like I often have these feelings of like I've been played or taken advantage of, or something against my will has been enacted against me, and like it'll be completely like a feeling maybe not like appropriate to what actually happened, but it like has that level of feeling raped or something like this.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, and like you, it's like, I'm never letting this happen again. Like, how did I
strategize?
Not see this happening? Yeah, exactly. And there is also a way that despite being a hard type, I can really not see myself as a person. and I can I know it's social blind also, but there's another way to it that I see myself as a function. And so there's all this emphasis as a 4 on the personal and wanting to be met on that personal level, and here's what's personal about me. But I feel like I'm very good at getting people to reveal and see and acknowledge what is personal about them, but without bringing out my personal for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's attachment. I don't know if that's double, rejection or whatever.
Yeah, I think that specifically you're very rejection 4. The other ones that we've known are very frustration, or they have all the attachment types in there. So a lot of how 4 is defined is through the lens of your experience, which is very, very rejection. Because there is a social blind thing to forgetting to make things personal that I think all 3 of you share. But I think specifically that gets exacerbated with John, with you. Because you do have a way of offering a lot without revealing a lot at the same time. Your revealing is not very is still very protected and still very guarded in a way that feels very rejection to me. There is a way that you're expressing in the 4 way, but it's still very locked down and no one's going to get to you still.
I've also got this thing about carving out my own space, intellectually and inner world wise. And so, writing the Enneagram in the Instinct book was kind of I'm going to plant my flag right over here. And I'm also going to plant my flag on Enneagram and inner work, because I feel like my book is, other books tackle the Enneagram and inner work, but like Facets of Unity, for example, is about a spiritual perspective on the Enneagram, but it doesn't say much about the actual process of work. And so I was that those things came together in that book, and there was a little bit of this is my corner, and I kind of feel there's some kind of territorial thing, and it's less about oh, I'm unique because of I'm suffering in this particular way. I probably have that very much internally, but I don't broadcast that very much. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where I broadcast about what's unique about me is kind of the alcove I've got. And yeah, I don't know. Is this making sense?
Yeah. I think that's a way that rejection and the way those 2 things combine. It's I have to create my own ideal separate world that everyone, in order to engage with me, they have to come and engage in this
comply
world.
with.
Yeah. I'm not, it's just making sure that you don't have to reach out and adapt with anything out there.
I'll say with 4s that I've seen with more attachment, they will have a bit of what fixes does Bob Dylan have?
What 7 and 8?
I think he's 7 and 8.
7 and 8.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So bad example, but I was thinking what I've noticed in 4s with attachment fixes in my life is that they will kind of. I'm interrupting you, David.
I was just going to say, but I don't know if it helps. Billy Corgan, I think, has 6 and 9.
Okay, I don't remember.
Nicole Kidman also has 6 and 9.
And they both have 3 wings also, so they've got Riso, they've got the whole attachment. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know as much about them or anything.
Right.
But just in life, I've seen where 4s with the attachment fixes, I see a little bit about more of their way of showing their uniqueness is a little bit more about getting into a personal dynamic with somebody to bring out or show or something like that. So maybe it might be these are my certain preferences, or this is, there's some kind more of demonstration of this is the way I am, where I kind of feel with me, I don't know if I do. I mean, you guys can tell me, but I don't feel like I do that as much. And I also feel a lot of 4s I know are very fussy about what's happening around them, and I'll be very much peace out or not. But I don't feel like I get really worked up too much of what's happening around me.
Yeah, no, that pings. Yeah, that's correctly with my friend Pat that I'm always talk about. He's your type twin, except he's got 6 and 9, and he's super aware of his surroundings and what's going on with people, and so he's hyper self-conscious and sensitive, and thinks that that person that's laughing all the way across the grocery store is somehow laughing at him. That stuff that's going on is about him, and he's being personally assaulted by the environment and the people constantly. He can't do the cutoff because he's got that 6 and 9.
It feels like the 4s that have a lot of attachment, it's like an inverse of, the attachments having a lot of frustration, where it's like they are in the world, but it's like their skin is just all these jagged edges. So it seems that they're more frustrated because, like, we did a class with Billy Corgan, and he's very aware what the music industry is doing and what's so, banal and fake. And so it feels like a more obvious 4 because they're talking about the attachment stuff.
That's right.
Right.
And so there's a sense of like, this person is really disagreeable because they are tapped into the things that people care about and are using that as fuel to say that all of this stuff is trash. And
one way to say it is, as a 4, Billy Corgan is frustrated by his own attachment. He's frustrated by that suck into the collective. Yeah. So he's got to push back and he's got to react.
Yeah, it's more there's more of an edge to it versus when we see the 4-wing 5s in the interviews, they almost seem, in a sense, like the way that 9s give you nothing, because they're saying they're so cut off from the idea that I'm playing this game with you. So they just deflect, not in the way that 9s do, but they deflect in the way that there's kind of a void there.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't feel like I give a lot to strangers.
Yeah.
No, you don't. And that's kind of what I was trying to say badly earlier, is there's a way that, like, you really just don't give off your location in a lot of ways. In a way that where we've met certain rejection types and there's like sort of like a lack of a back and forth sometimes, like you can kind of have that too. And I think it's more than just being social blind, because we've met social types that are heavy rejection that just like, there's like a lack of porousness there to know how to respond even. Or to like where, like I feel like I kind of always know how to respond to sometimes I don't, or sometimes I just don't like to or don't want to. But I feel like I always kind of have things are always getting in me to a way that I know how to respond because I know what it feels like to be affected in that way. So I feel like with, and 4 is frustration. So there is still a response, but there's the way that it's not getting, I don't know, into the deeper layers because of those rejection walls that just don't notice the impact at all.
I mean, you see my frustration real clear, but I don't think people that aren't close to me like pick up too much on it, other than I'm like a little bit annoying about, stuff on the Enneagram or something.
Right, exactly. And yeah, that's a good point too, is like, because you're not affected by a lot of things, and in a way that there's like a, like your interests are so narrow that there's just no way you're going to have there's no other way you're going to have exposure to certain things, because 1, you're not affected, and 2, it's just not in your interest. They're not going to see your reaction to this like wide breadth of stimuli, basically.
It's a good way to differentiate just 4 with a 3 versus 4 with a 5. That's why 4 with a 3 has so much, I don't know, like more
bitchiness,
apparent, bitchiness and like ornamentation too. Like the collective is supposed to see that I am such and such, whereas with 4 with a 5, it's like I'm preemptively cut off. So I'm not even, they wouldn't even get it. I'm not even interested in sharing it. I'm not interested in establishing something for them to see me with. Yeah.
Well, somebody in the Facebook group made a collage or a series of pictures of 4-wing 5 fixers and commented that it was like they were all looked homeless or something like that.
Yes,
and
that.
in college, I was like a couple times mistaken for a homeless person. You know,
Yeah, totally. My friend Pat definitely often looks like a homeless person.
We just, by the time this goes live, the class on Leonard Cohen would have gone out, so I'm not giving anything away.
Oh, nice.
But that was a good one because it is kind of hard to spot the 4 sometimes with 4-wing-5 because the frustration isn't worn on their sleeve. But there was one video that I thought was that we watched of him, or interview that I thought was very exemplifying 4-wing-5, where they asked him, why do you think people come to your shows? And at first he gave sort of like a 9-ish response, like, I don't know. And then the guy, asked again, and he said, well, I mean, if you stand on a corner and you hold a sign and you make a spectacle of yourself, a bunch of people will come and see you. And so I suppose I'm making a spectacle of myself, and a bunch of people are coming around. Now, I don't know if anything I'm doing is of any, real worth. At least I try, but just because people are here doesn't mean anything. Maybe I'm just making a fool of myself. I was just like, you're not. He's not even part of the,
It's an interesting study or specimen too, because he's pretty clearly like secondary 9, and you can see a lot of 9 in what he says. But it starts to, as that episode unfolds, you start to see more and more in the clips. He's just like,
because
Captain Negative.
It's kind of like, it's not dissociating like a 9, because a 9 is kind of like zooms out to say I'm part of the everything. Like as we saw with Bob Dylan, similar things like, why were you the voice of a generation, or why did you win all these awards? And he's like, just because you win an award doesn't mean your music is good. That sense of like, what I'm doing is so separate from whatever is happening in the world that you might think that a 9 would say something like that. But there's a way that 4 and 5, or not 4 and 5, but frustration.
4-wing. So
4 with the 5-wing, but I'm just in general, like the frustration and rejection thing is, I'm like, rejection can kind of be like, with frustration can be so not in any engagement, or so cut off, or like a dead end. I'm a dead end.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's no way that what's happening out there is touching me.
Damn, I was really wanting to claim Leonard Cohen as one of mine.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of 9-ish stuff.
There's a lot of
there.
9.
I mean, like Joseph is saying, I don't know, I'm not seeing it. Then,
it took a while to find that one.
Yeah,
that's pretty great. 4, 5, and 9 right up front. That man's nowhere. So I guess that's why I thought 9.
Yeah, and he's got a 6 fix as well, right? He's got a 6 fix. And I was thinking with like
attachment with a lot of rejection, it's kind of similar to what I feel with like 8-wing-9s, where it's like, I'm just going to be in this one spot. Attachment was I'm trying to create these dependent attachments with people, which require, with the rejection thing just sort of being a dead end. It's like, here's what I have to offer, and this is how I'm going to get my attachment going. So there's not a lot of frustration-y movement. I'm just going to find these attachments, and because I have just these offerings, I'm just going to stay here.
Yeah, there was a guy we typed recently. Didn't he have triple rejection? He was 9 with an 8, secondary 3 with a 2, and 6 with a 5, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was very much, there's a sort of weird cut off matter of factness.
Yes.
Like, just I'm here, and it just doesn't have that kind of ambivalence of frustration. It's just like, take it or leave it. I'm here.
Well, you've got some direct experience with this, David, don't you?
You're talking about the Kaisa humanoid?
I'm talking about your wife, man.
Yeah.
Humanoid. It's cute.
Well, I guess I was asking more, so like you mentioned before, the differences in what you were expecting versus, other partners before that had more frustration. Right. And like, like the rejection attachment thing. What's your experience?
Yeah. No, it is very much a stabilizing force in the sense of it's like I was just describing, and with that other example, that person we typed recently, she's just very solidly where she is, and there's not that frustration drive to froth up something that's not even there, just to have some froth going, just to make something just to make something happen. John, you don't get that?
John froth because he doesn't froth.
Do I froth, baby?
You're a frother.
Froth all over you.
Yeah. So it's like I said, I mean, already complimented the situation and her. It's a whole other kind of environment, so to speak, to be in. It's like, because I've got so much frustration, so okay, so how do I work this machinery here? Yeah.
You know what I think, at least my experience of attachment and rejection, is that they're the best negotiators. Because
say that again.
They're the
attachment
best
and frustration.
Attachment and rejection.
Oh, rejection. Okay.
Yeah.
Make for the best negotiators because.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's like, rejection is I got this to offer, and attachment is really adaptable, and without frustration, you're not getting distracted by, these ideal fantasies.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what your situation has,
or the nitpicking.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just very focused on the here and now and how do we make this work. And, that's one advantage of not having frustration, because that shit can get you, chasing Latina Brazilians and that you'll probably never chase. I don't even have to go to Brazil. Like, there's a bunch of, like this fantasy, let me travel to this other country. No, I'm not going to do that. It's just a nice little thing to, get hooked on.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to go to Brazil to find the Latina. Other times you go to a New York Enneagram meetup and the Latina finds you.
Yeah, there you go.
That's right. Don't get it twisted, audience.
Sometimes when you least expect
him.
it, and a Latina finds you.
Mm-hmm.
And it might not be a Latina, because that was just my obsession of the month. I'll move on to Eastern Europeans next.
Yeah, for real.
No, but you had another one, Emeka, recently. It was very racist. It was, you wanted to find the super dark, just the darkest
black woman. Yeah. It was. I didn't want just a regular. I wanted, like, I was collecting the darkest black women possible.
Yeah.
That was just for 2
the
months.
Pure, like, sexual fetish of it.
I was I looked back on it, I was like,
wing.
what were you doing? What was that about?
Yeah. What was I thinking?
Yeah, there's that 7-wing thing. Like, this is my.
Yeah, it's a new flavor.
This is this is my objective flavor for right now.
Now.
Not objective. Yeah.
Well, it's like it is
this
objective
one seems fun.
right now.
Right now.
Just right
it's
now.
all I can see.
I meant objective as in this is the objective.
Oh, yeah, right.
And, like, this is the goal.
The goal.
I should make that qualifier of, 7 influence with, like, oh, you're going to be infected by this new person and all you're going to see is Indian girls. It's like, that's a lot of 7 shit. You don't need you don't need to be sampling a new flavor of the month because you're infected,
Oh, man.
Yeah. Is there anything else in this topic?
Was it also, besides object relations, was it also to talk about centers or order of centers, or no, that was a different...
Doing the, like, center orders, I know is something people have interest in, like what it means to be heart last or head last, and whatever the other one is, body last, that kind of stuff. And I know we're going to have a bit of a lopsided view because we have 3 heart lasts and a body last.
Yeah.
None of us we're all head middle.
We briefly discussed with Joseph, because he wanted to do a short video on it. We'll see what comes out of that, but because he is body last, and I think he had an insight that he comes across very heady, and we just recently typed somebody who's 6 with the secondary heart, and one thing I've noticed, at least, is the head types that have the heart center second just feel really unhinged to me. It doesn't matter if they're self-pres social or whatever. There's like a real unrattled, because the gut center is not secondary. And I can get, you get that with Joseph, like where he just starts going. It's just like kind of like an ungrounded, unhinged, thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ungrounded can feel true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, especially if we talk about like the intelligences that come from each center, there's like feeling and thinking and making sense, of that's still head center stuff versus just sensing, of the body center. So do you feel like body last can really overly rely on like their feelings and their map making?
Yeah.
To a point where it can overcomplicate it. That's sometimes where I get with head center. I'm like this, or with body last. I'm like, this is much simpler than you're making it.
There's also another one that's like that is gut types that are heart second, because sort of like the more natural lineup or something that seems to, for whatever reason, support gut first is head center second. I mean, like, to me, we're going to be talking about him again some more, but like that's part of the thing with Trump is I think he's 3 second and then 6, and that has him, it's destabilizing in a way. It's like, it's part of why he's not much of a strategist, because he's, I don't know, sensitive about image and so forth. So it's kind of it kind of undermines, in his case, the whole 8 program.
Yeah, head to me sometimes, head last in whatever order, if it's gut or heart first, can feel very creaturely to me sometimes. If it's just like, oh, you're just sensing and feeling, that's what animals do. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, there's like a, not that they don't think, obviously, but that's clearly like the last priority, like their own mapping can sometimes feel like that's clearly the last thing you're interested in.
Yeah, interesting.
And I'm trying to like phrase that in a way that maintains like integrity and stuff, but like,
and isn't offensive to people.
Yeah. I'm trying to not sound like a snob, but yeah, there is like a creaturely thing, like it's just like a deer just walking around and chewing on leaves and like having their feel like, oh, now you're scared and you're running off this, like that kind of thing, or you like this person, but there's like there is like a strategy, there is like a gridding, like they're not trying to orient themselves in a certain way. Obviously, everybody still has a head center, but it just feels like the last priority.
Creaturely fits with one of my exes that you guys are somewhat familiar with, SPS. She was 9 with secondary 3. Definitely critterly.
There's like a just vibing.
Yes, that's right.
Kind of quality.
The 8s that have secondary heart, especially like the 8s that have secondary 4, like for example, Marlon Brando is like one of the greatest actors of all time, and part of his appeal was just how he could just bleed emotion in a very animalistic way on the screen. And can think of like, Hitler, I think we've got
Hitler,
typed as,
I think we've got as 8, 4, 6 in that order. Yeah.
If you've seen his speeches, and also like there's like a clip I saw recently where people said that he was on meth during the Olympics, and he's just like, like Peter Steele is another one. Like there are videos of him where he's just bleeding so much emotion. People are wondering, how can this person be an 8?
Right.
They're just just the amount of expressiveness. Because it's just 8 is so instinctual, and then when you have secondary heart, it's just no gap between this is what I want to do, this is how I feel. So it can feel really impulsive. Like Trump.
Yeah, it does feel impulsive.
Because the 8s that have secondary head are the more calculating, strategic.
Yeah.
Superior.
And they're clearly just like, they like this is, again, it's like sounds mean, and I don't mean for it to be mean, but it's like they understand all of what they're doing, because they're like, there's like a self-tracking kind of. Yeah, it's like they're archiving themselves almost, head center-y stuff. And then heart lasts are
perfect in every way.
Jinx.
Heartless.
Okay,
You got to work to get to my heart, baby.
Heart last.
You got to work.
Getting around these heart lasts.
You don't value it if you don't work.
Yeah, what do you love about
John's
us,
about
John?
to drag us.
Good luck.
You stupid body types with no souls.
Yeah. There you go.
Don't heart,
Jared,
where your
John's-
feelings. You do too much thinking. You think you know everything.
Well, his is all. His doesn't really count because it's just covered by the dead end of rejection. So it's like not even. You're not even the hard type.
Yeah,
that
we
people like.
vibe. Just different flavors of being dead inside.
Yeah,
Well, all
true.
right. One thing I appreciate actually about y'all being heart last is that when your heart shows up, it's very real and it's not kind of animating your usual ego structure.
Yeah.
Or like convoluted or something.
Yeah, like I do pretty well with heart last, and I feel like heart last kind of trust me because with like for what my like heart stuff without being all like I don't feel like I mean you guys can tell me otherwise, but I don't feel like I'm like give me your heart or something like that.
No, you're not
Please
grabby.
stop, John. Don't try to suck my heart juices out of me.
Tell me how you feel. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I can get that sometimes from other heart. What's the word I'm looking for?
Types.
Other heart cores. Yeah, where we can be like too grabby, and it makes me want to like, no, that's mine for me. It's private. Go away.
Yeah.
Even well, I don't. Not all
Even-
threes. Some threes.
I've
Some
gotten it
threes, for
from
sure.
threes.
All threes?
I mean, it's attachment, you know.
Yeah, that's true. The threes that have secondary 3, or secondary 9, they feel more like I'm gonna use my sense of being to get a sense of value, not necessarily just like constantly trying
That's really good.
to orient to you, get you to see me the way I want you.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good because Josh definitely has like a 9-ish thing where his like 9 shaman thing, sweet Pisces boy thing is definitely folded into like how he presents himself.
Yeah.
Also, he's mentioned too that like the 3-9 thing is like the cool, unflappable image, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Sure.
All right. I have to work on this thing.
Okay.
So I'll see you guys.
Yep.
Feel free to keep whatever, but I'll see
Yeah,
you guys.
no, I got to roll.
All right.
Yeah, I gotta
Later.
go too.
Okay.
All right, bye
See you
guys.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.